With the Ministry of Forestry and the Environment and the Department of Water Resources on Tuesday officially launched the Gambia's second National Communication Report. The convergence focused on measures capable of mitigating emissions in the energy sector, vulnerability and promising adaptation measures in key socio-economic sectors, as well as other activities contributing to building resilience to climate change. Aissatou reports.
The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1994, committing the country to the adoption and implementation of policies and measures mitigating the causes of climate change and adapting to its adverse effects. The Gambia's second national communication to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has been prepared in accordance with Article 4 and Article 12 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which calls for parties to report to the Conference of Parties regarding information on its emissions by sources and removals of all greenhouse gases for the achievement of the objective of the Convention. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change focal point states that the parties shall also formulate, implement, publish and regularly update national and where appropriate regional programs containing measures to mitigate climate change.
In fulfillment to this commitment, the Gambia has finalized and submitted its second national communication that builds on the first national communication that was submitted in 2003. The second national communication contains national greenhouse gas inventory for a complete time series of 1990 to 2000, as well as the main findings of studies on impacts, vulnerability, and adaptation to climate change on various economic sectors.
The National Environment Agency's Executive Director described the second national communication as important, saying the document provides vital information on the country's emissions from different sources of all greenhouse gases, besides those controlled under the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer.
Currently, 4 full-size projects to the tune of $24 million on early warning systems, agriculture, forestry, and coastal protection have been developed or are being developed by the Gambia for funding under the LDC fund of the Global Environment Facility. This amount doesn't include additional $8 million under our national star allocation under the GEF. With the anticipated funding of $32 million, the GEF is absolutely the largest financier of environmental projects in the Gambia.
The Minister for Forestry and the Environment noted that adequate and predictable financial resources are needed now and in the future for the implementation of the Climate Change Convention. She said at the national level, appropriate policies and activities that integrate climate change into national development are good entry points for the mobilization of additional funding to address climate change.
We in the Gambia have successfully integrated climate change in the page, document, and under the current early warning project and the third national communications. We will continue to do the same in our sectoral policies and programs. We will also continue to encourage the private sector and all relevant institutions that provide relevant data for the next national communications.
Launching the second National Communication Report, Dr. Njoguba, the Secretary General, Minister for Presidential Affairs and Information Minister and the Head of Civil Service, applauded the development partners for their partnership in this second national communication of the Gambia through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Dr. Ba remarked that the multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary engagement has been a fruitful one and is moving the country in the right direction for reporting on their efforts in Climate Change Convention.
Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot wait for climate change to finish us all. We must take action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and the current concentration in the atmosphere. We must work towards switching from fossil fuel to renewable energy sources and technologies, adopt appropriate waste management strategies and technologies, and expand our carbon sink through sustainable forest resources management.
Even though the Gambia's contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is negligible, the country is nevertheless committed to reducing its greenhouse emissions where this is financially and environmentally feasible. Thus, the second national communication makes a partial investigation of measures planned to mitigate climate change through a reduction in greenhouse emissions at the sectoral level. It is predicted with a high degree of certainty that the Gambia will experience an increase in temperatures ranging between 1.1 degrees Celsius and 3.9 degrees Celsius during the period 2030 to 2100. For GRTS News, I am Aissatou Mane.
The National Assembly is to convene an extraordinary session on Thursday, 31st January 2013 at 10 a.m. to consider and ratify the following motions. The preferential trade system among member states of the Organization of Islamic Conference, TPS-OIC, rules of origin, protocol of preferential tariff scheme for TPS-OIC PRETAS, and other related OIC protocols. Sittings commences at 10 a.m. and the general public is invited to attend. The Livestock and Horticulture Development Project recently funded a 2-month capacity building program for 8 youths from its intervention areas in livestock and horticultural production at the Songhai Center in the Republic of Benin. We have more in this report prepared by the Communication Extension and Education Services Unit of the Deputy of Agriculture and read in our studios by Babukar Senghor.
Of the Central Projects Coordinating Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Ibrahim Jawrak, applauded LSDP for their immense contribution to food security and sustainable livelihood through capacity building of its clients. Jawrak underscored the importance of capacity building in empowering farmers to sustain project activities whenever the project phases out. He therefore expressed the hope that capacity building of beneficiaries will in no doubt go a long way in enhancing the sustainability of LHDP. As such, he urged them to leave no stone unturned in their quest to learn as much as possible in order to build their capacities in their areas of specialization. The coordinator of Livestock and Horticulture Development Project, Lamin A.D. Sanyang, noted that a lot has been invested to ensure that participants benefited from that training. He reminded them that they are only selected among the lot and urged them to seize the opportunity and acquire as much knowledge as possible to enhance their efficiency for improved production and productivity. He emphasized that much hope is bestowed on them upon the completion of their training to serve as role models for sustaining the activities of the project in their respective communities. He stressed their important role in effective skills transfer on best farm practices in the promotion of livestock and horticulture production to enhance income level of their peers. Sanyam finally thanked the International Fund for Agricultural Development on behalf of the government of the Gambia for providing the funds for the training. For GRTS News, this is Babukar Senghor.
Well, we now take our first break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to GRTS News. It has been nearly 3 weeks now since the start of an international offensive in the West African country of Mali. And now the French-led offensive is making its final push for the northern city of Kidal and last major rebel stronghold. French military sources say they have secured the city's airport. Meanwhile, many residents in the towns of Gao and Timbuktu are already celebrating liberation from rebel rule. But as ITN's Lindsay Hilton tells us, many also have revenge on their minds, and a warning some of the images in her report are disturbing.
The soldiers got hold of